And we are back. You are chatting with John P. Today, we are going to be talking about this watch that Glashütte Original has released. It's a dive watch, and I don't know that I fully understand what's going on here. Actually, now that I think about it, I see exactly what is going on here. I just don't necessarily agree with it considering where the brand was and what they're doing. But first, I'd like to thank you for being here once again for another video. It really is appreciated, so hit that thumbs up button because it does help me to help you to keep making videos like this. And a pretty cool watch that we have at delraywatch.com is actually on my wrist. It's a vintage watch, right? Like, after all, I did start this channel to talk about vintage. By the way, the watch we talk about today is vintage inspired, which is a whole nother can of worms we could open up. But this is a vintage Le Coultre alarm, and I just love these vintage JLCs and LCs. Very cool, a lot of bang for your buck. Check it out, delraywatch.com. So, the watch at hand for discussion or for chat today is the Glashütte Original Sea Q and the Sea Q 1969 limited edition. Here's the thing. Glashütte makes some excellent watches, German manufacturer. There are a few German watches that really do a great job. You have Nomos, you have A. Lange & Söhne, you have Glashütte Original, and some others, but those are kind of the most popular ones, I would say, from a dealer's perspective. And we even get them in at delraywatch.com from time to time, and I handle them, and they are very impressive. Most of them, for the Glashütte Original line, they have see-through case backs, so you can see a little bit better finishing than you would see in some of the other watches in their price point from the Swiss manufacturers if they have open case backs, so you can see them. The movements are well decorated, the case construction is on point, the retail prices are a bit higher than you'd see from some of their competitors in the Swiss world, though every day the prices seem to be going up. But what they're not really known for, in my opinion, is all of their sports watches, right? You have like the Panomatic Lunar, and some of the others. Sure, you have the Senator lineup, the vintage lineup. You have the hand date, a whole number and slew of watches. But now they decide to come out with a dive watch, and a dive watch that I might add is significantly more expensive retail price-wise than the Rolex Submariner, and certainly much more expensive than some of the others. Like, I did a review the other day about the Omega Seamaster and compared that to the Rolex Submariner Hulk, and I don't know why they're doing this, or I should rephrase that. I do know why they're doing this. They're piggybacking, or they're coattailing on the back of the whole dive watch craze, the whole sports watch craze, and they're hoping they can siphon off a few sales. But I don't know that they necessarily thought this through in terms of what it does to their product lineup, right? So when we consider watch brands, one of the most important things is the product lineup in the lineage of their lines through time. Rolex, perfect example. They've done such a great job. The Submariner has been there. The Daytona has been there. Even Omega, looking at how they've solidified their product lineup, they've had the Seamaster, they've had the Speedmaster, and even the DeVille, which is, I also did a video on. It's not that popular of a watch, especially in the US. In parts of Asia, it's a little more popular. They've done a great job at actually being consistent with that model. And so Glashütte comes out with this revival of a watch that they say existed called the Glashütte Spasmatic Type RPTS 200. There'll be a picture here, and it's a vintage dive watch. It's from a period of time in Glashütte's history where there was the whole division between the East and the West Germany. I won't get into too much of a history lesson, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you know that the manufacturer was controlled by not the same controlling party that it is today. And it kind of seems like to me that the brand in current day kind of just dug up an old model that existed in the same kind of way that people dig up old watch brands like Angelus and some of the others, and kind of create this whole story fabrication, which is what happens in the watch world for marketing. It's smart. It needs to happen. You have to sell something, right? You have to sell that story behind the product, so I understand it that. But they just revived this thing. I personally couldn't find any of these original Spasmatic type RPTSs floating around on the internet. So I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there in the story. I hate to see a brand of this caliber to actually take that route with this pretend revival, I would say. I think the watch looks very attractive. There'll be a picture here. Let's talk about the specs. I personally think the watch would be an excellent piece. I don't think it's worth the almost $11,000 when you can look at some alternatives that are going to go up in value in terms of dive watches. The watch is 39.5 millimeters in diameter, has a 40-hour power reserve, so less than the Submariner, less than the Seamaster. Not saying that it's bad, but it's certainly less. It's only 200 meters water resistant, so probably much more resistant to water than the original that it's modeled after, this Spysmatic type RP. It has a ceramic bezel, so they're jumping on that whole craze and going in that direction. Putting the ceramic bezel, it's going to have that luxurious look. It has a non-see-through case back. Now, that's my number one sticking point. Sure, it's a dive watch, and so when we talk dive watches, typically the solid case backs are placed on the watch to give it extra water resistance. You don't have to worry about another crystal and the pressure. I'm not sure exactly how that works, though. When speaking with Hans, our watchmaker, it seems like the science behind it points in the direction of having that extra crystal on the back makes it a little more difficult to waterproof the watch, but they only went to 200 meters anyway. When we look at something like the Seamaster, can also pull that off, and their movement is very well decorated. One of the things Glashütte Original is known for is their decoration of their movements. The German movements look considerably different than a lot of the Swiss manufacturer movements or even off-the-shelf Swiss movements, and that's one thing that I know, working with so many of you, that you enjoy about some of these manufacturers like Glashütte. They have nice decoration on the movements. They don't have that with this model, which I think is pretty disappointing to see in an almost $11,000 watch. It's a bit of a sticking point for me personally. I know that many of you out there, it won't be a big deal because you know that inside it's probably just as well decorated. They're putting these movements into other purposes and watches, so it's going to be to the same level as something with the case back, likely. Though there's no way to know without cracking it open, right? That's just crazy speculation. But the other thing that I think is really unfortunate to see in a manufacturer like this is they're also jumping on the same craze of vintage-inspired watches. Now, this is a new product line for them, and it's vintage-inspired. You see it with Longines, but Longines is under several $1,000s. You see it with a watch brand like Zodiac reviving, owned by Fossil Group, reviving their old dive watches. And you see that now in an $11,000 watch, making their watches look vintage. Now, sure, even Omega is a little bit guilty of it, but we're talking a watch that's twice the price, and they're developing an entire new product lineup around that. Now, I want to hear actually what you think. That was really pushing me to make this video. Fed, my business partner Federico at DelRayWatch.com, we were having a bit of a debate about this, and I don't necessarily think that this is a great move. I think the watch looks cool, the specs are okay, but that's really not what draws collectors, in my opinion, to the Glashütte brand, the Glashütte Original, nor am I drawn to it for that. I like that see-through case back, I like the luxury, and I like what they do to innovate and take a little bit of traditional watchmaking heritage and spirit and make a modern watch. That's why I like them, and that's why I feel that collectors like you like them. Let me know, what do you think about this vintage-inspired dive watch in the comments below. Do you think it's going to be a hit? Would you rather have this than to buy a Submariner and a Seamaster? Because I think you could probably buy a pre-owned Seamaster and a brand new Submariner at list for the same prices as this watch if you buy it at retail. What do you think about it? Do you think the history is a little bit far-fetched? I want to know. Leave in the comments below. Quick episode for you guys to share my thoughts with this watch, which I think is going to be good, though disappointing on a couple of sticking points. Let me know. Thumbs up. You have been watching Chatting with John P. Ciao.